Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We will get started shortly. We will probably give people a couple minutes to wander in and click links, and if they've been living in Teams land for a while, try and figure out where the Zoom controls are. So just give everybody one moment, and then we'll get started. Um, we are going to ask some questions as we go along. So if you're already in with us, make sure that you can see the chat. And if you don't mind, why don't you go ahead and just put in there what city you're joining us from? We'd just love to kind of know the spread of who's with us today. And then while people are, all right.
Welcome, Keith. Hi, Rush. Welcome, Steen. Oh, Atlanta. Hi, Praveen.
Houston, okay. Plano,
Lawrence, Vicent, welcome. Mac, Dallas, welcome. Would love to have some international presence here.
all right. Well, let's see. We'll give 30 more seconds. We'll go to 102. Oak Cliff, our founder and CEO would be proud of that one. That's where he's from, Chris. So that's great. Oh, we got a few more people. I'm watching the attendee list continue to go up. So as long as that's kind of trending up, I'll just give it one more minute and then we'll get started. For those of you who just joined, we're just putting kind of where you're from down in the chat. We will be asking a few questions along the way, and so want to make sure everybody knows where that's at and can interact. So that way it'll help kind of guide our conversation as we go. We've got a little bit of some different paths that we can go down. So I'm going to get started here. So thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. We know everybody's time is important, but I think this topic is one around data and AI that, at least in the many conversations that I'm in, has proven to be a really important one. So, for those who don't know me, I'm David Brown. I'm joined by Divya Sridhar, and we are both out of the Dallas office here. And we both work for Aleda, running our data and insights service line, where we engage with clients from everything from data strategy to platform engineering and architecture to analytics. Just one slide on Aleda. I think a lot of you from the names I see do know us, but Aleda's been around for about 10 years as a boutique consulting firm. Our background is really in deep software and data engineering. That's what we've been doing across those years. We are spread across the globe. We have deep teams in Argentina, in India, a little bit in London, and then the US. And where we've really been investing the last couple of years of our time is around AI and how AI fits and flows into both of those disciplines, whether we're talking about software engineering or data engineering. How does it impact those worlds? How does it impact how we engage with our clients? And one of the things we'll talk about a little bit today is our accelerator platform that we've built and how that's being used at different client sites to really facilitate real value from AI. And so that's a little bit about us. That's who we are. But that is not why you guys are here today. You guys are here today to talk a little bit about AI and data. And so I would say, if I go back maybe a year, every time I'm having a conversation with a CEO, a CIO, an executive, um, whether from their own desire or from their executive team or their leadership team, there is a consistent desire I just want to be able to interact with my data through AI. I want to be able to go, how are my projects running? How's my supply chain running? How's my overall lead generation funnel working? What's the quality happening on my manufacturing floor? Like, I don't want to have to consistently go to 10 different dashboards. I want to be able to have a at my fingertips type of interaction. And so what we're going to kind of talk through a little bit today is that's great. There is tremendous value that I imagine some of you are seeing. and certainly we're seeing with our clients. But that is not necessarily a simple or easy thing to get to. It takes some real work and it takes some real perspective. And so we'll kind of go through a few of those things to do that. And it requires both um, AI and data to be in a place that's ready to be consumed. So I've got a question for you guys. I'm going to put it here in the chat. And so basically, I'm just curious, as you guys think about your landscape, which of these categories would you fall in? Would you fall underneath do we've got our data's put together well, it's well engineered, it's accessible, but AI is where we're having challenge? Or are you on the other side, like AI is rocking and rolling, but our data is not keeping up? Or we're a mess. You don't have to say we're a mess. That's not what you're saying if you say number three. Let's just say you have challenges on both sides. Or four, dude, we've got it solved. Please just, you should actually let me run the webinar. I've got it, and I'm in a great shape. So I'm just curious, you guys just put one, two, three, four, and curious to know where everybody sees themselves. I knew when some data people that I was going to get some point fives. So I appreciate that, Stephen. I was definitely expecting that. Um, so I'll wait for a couple more. So it looks like right now, two, right? Two is what's winning right now, which is um, there's AI happening in my organization, but the issue is that the data is not in a state, it's not keeping up to where it needs to be. So I think that's a really good observation, and I'll use that to kind of segue into um, what I've been kind of just call it five truths that these things are call it principles, call it values that are really important if you think about how do you actually get AI to generate some value for your organization. And so I'll go through these at a high level real quick, and then I'll ask you guys another quick question on that. But they kind of fall into these are the five things. So one is AI output and consistency is directly correlated to the preciseness of the context provided. Some big words. What I mean by that is you can take your AI, take your model of choice, and throw it at your data platform or throw it at your ERP if it can expose the data in a certain way. And you can do that and you can pray. And occasionally you'll get some magic come out of it and you'll get a good answer. But what I'm hearing is people want consistent, accurate analysis. And to do that, you have to give AI a tight context window. If you've done any kind of research right around prompt engineering and what does that look like around AI performs better if you give it a goal, if you give it a tight understanding of what good looks like, and then you get the outcome that you're looking for, that is still true and even more so for data itself. And so the ability to go, here's your context of data is really important. Second truth is modern data platforms. So we're talking Snowflake, Databricks, Fabric, kind of core AWS data function capabilities. These things have got some pros and cons. The pros are you can get your data into a platform and start modeling it really fast. And you can move much faster than you could on some older platforms or if you were in an on-premise situation. But it also has the probably not surprising outcome that you can end up with low quality data and a lot of it. And so moving fast doesn't necessarily mean moving well. And so we'll dig into that a little bit. Truth number three is just the speed of delivery. So one of my compatriots who is lurking backstage somewhere, a guy named David Romeo, who is our SVP of innovation, he's been pressing the software engineering side for the last years around how we can use that to deliver with greater speed and greater quality. And I would say over the last kind of 6 months or so, that's really started to make its for the capabilities to increase on the data side. And so something we have to wrestle with is our teams have the ability to move much faster than they used to be able to move. And how do we manage that in order to actually deliver? Fourth one is AI is evolving. Actually, I'm going to put that one on the side. I'll get to that in a little bit, but just talking about how you think about AI and how you think about it impacting you from both an individual and an enterprise productivity really matters. I would say initially, right, it was all about individual productivity. If I can just have ChatGPT create a presentation, if I can just have it answer some questions for me, it can make me individually more productive. And I think what we're really seeing is the real value to an organization is, can you deploy agents to a department? Can you deploy repeatable skills into your organization on a consistent basis across groups? How do you get to actual enterprise performance? And then the last one that I think is really important is just how we interface with data is changing. And so I know there's been calls for dashboards are dead for probably a decade now in differing ways. And for me, I'm not a dashboards are dead person because I think we still need a very visual lexicon as humans to see things, how they change over time, to be able to do the part of the decision making that we need. But at the same time, I don't think that we need a dashboard for every possible data request that someone has. We don't need 1,000 dashboards in our organizations. We need some core visual components, and then what we really need is we need an AI that can sit there and answer the next question and the next question and the next question. So I'm going to throw these five in the chat real quick and go. And so my question here is, across those five, which one of these actually interests you? I'm going to touch on each of them over the next, call it 15 minutes. But if there's any of these that you're like, yes, that's the one that I want you to spend some more time on, then let me know as I am going through. And yes, we can pause for a question. Someone from backstage is saying, pause for a question. This is me pausing. Someone's going to have to tell me where the question is. Okay, Mac. I'm not sure where the question is coming from, so I'm going to keep going. If you figure that out, jump in. Um, all right, so I'm seeing 1, 4, 1 and 5, 3. All right, so at a minimum, what I know is I will not spend a lot of time on 2. That's what that definitely tells me. So let me kind of keep going. So number one, AI output and quality and consistency is directly correlated to the preciseness of the context provided. I mean, I think we've all read stories. I read a really interesting one where, again, an organization had taken their LLM, taken their model, connected it into their CRM and sales data, and ran their weekly meeting on this week after week. And they were making, it was a national company, and they were making real decisions around um, where should we go invest? Where are sales going up? Where do we need to do more? Where should we go do some triage because things aren't doing well? And about 6 months in, someone went and did some deep data analysis. And what they learned was there were massive gaps in their data, and the AI engine was filling those gaps and literally hallucinating where there was no data. Because again, anybody who's used AI, pick your model. It's a little bit like the overeager intern. It really wants to tell you yes. It really wants to give you an answer that is something that makes you feel good and gives you a positive affirmation of what you're doing, even if it doesn't have the data. And so it is important that you give it clear context. And the way that you do that, at least what we found, is really two main pieces. One is really targeted data products. And so when I use the term data products here, I mean, I might have a data product that is specifically for my finance data. And so it just has my P&L, my balance sheet, something like that. I might have a data product that is really targeted at procurement. My buyers are sitting here buying, what products they buy, how much do they buy, and I might have some targeted data products that say, here's current inventory levels, here's current demand, here's what we've bought in the past. And those three tight pieces of information result in a really good set of AI analysis to go and create value. The second piece is on the actual AI side, is having personas or agents that actually understand the tacit information, understand, like we've had real conversations pulling on the procurement example with buyers and how do they make their decisions and how do they treat seasonal differences. And a lot of that fits not so much in a database or a set of rules, but fits inside of the English-based or the pick your natural language-based version of a definition. That's what then drives the behavior. And buried within the personas is also skills. And when I say skills, I mean, what is a repeatable set of steps I want you to take every single time? And so if you want AI output, you've got to give it data products that have a specific context, and you've got to give it the ability to have tacit knowledge and repeatable steps to do the analysis that you need. And so that's really, really important. And this is where modern data platforms do come into play because they do a really good job of creating things like semantic views that hone in on what's the English, what's the definitions, what's the data, how should it be pulled together. So it's not trying to restitch that every single time. You want to take as many decisions away, so it's just making decisions and doing analysis in the areas that you want it to. So, all right, two, where the crowd has told me don't invest into, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I'm just going to say that how you engineer your data matters, the speed with which you do it, and how you can put it together does matter. And so do be thoughtful about the technology that sits underneath your data platform. This one I think is really interesting. And so this is number three. I think I saw a couple people refer to three. And so I think it was about November is when I heard one of the lead developers for Anthropic say, we don't write code anymore. We've gotten to a place from a software engineering standpoint where every bit of code is authored by an AI agent, and then we have agents and sub-agents that do architecture review and quality review, and we've got key points where humans are in the loop, where humans are helping with the upfront definition of specifications, monitoring or operating those agents, and validating the outputs. And so what I'm seeing here from a data standpoint for my teams, so we've got probably close to 100 on our data teams globally. This is where we are investing the most time. And so we are investing the most time in, yes, in code development, in writing SQL, in writing Python, but also in things like data model development, where we are invested in going, hey, what is our best practices around a medallion architecture, around a data vault architecture, something like that. And how do we then take the incoming requirements and use that to get us to like an 80% definition of a data model right off the bat that then our engineers can get in and refine and make fully accurate. Obviously, data quality testing. And then the last one is around analytics. And I'll show you one example or kind of what that looks like practically of how do you go from I have a user who wants to see a visual, wants to see a bit of analytics, and I want to be able to quickly iterate through with them what that might look like and what's the data model that sits underneath you. I'll show you as an example. So one more question, and this will be the last one that I'll ask. So and then I'll leave you guys alone on the questions, but it is helpful. And this is just a question on like where's your data team at right now? Is your data team like we don't use AI because we've been doing this for 20 years and we don't believe that that's going to be a quality result for us. We think that I still got to be writing every piece of SQL and Python that sits inside of an organization. Are you somewhere in the hey, we're not writing code anymore? Meaning, if I have an individual data engineering task, I have an individual analytics task. Stephen with the 2.5 again, I like it. Right, but the individual productivity is there. Or are you at full three? And when I say three, what I mean is, look, AI is handling the requirements, AI is handling the analytics, AI is handling creating the orchestration. Like you've really gotten to where you're operating. And so there's some good answers. I like this. This is a good blend, right? So nobody's full one, which is good, right? I think I told my team, or been telling them this year at some of our all hands meetings, is for your development, for your career, for your growth, you need to embrace this because we will get to a place where you can't be just the engineer sitting in a corner, right, who's just sitting there producing code all day because you won't be able to produce at the speed that's required. And so I think that is really important. And so here's a way that that's looked for us, just as kind of a quick example. I kind of talked about personas and skills before. And so the way that this works, where we get dashboards really, really quick, because we all know that people don't necessarily know what they want from a visual standpoint until they see something. And so we have a persona, we have an agent that is our dashboard persona. And so basically, if we sit down, have a conversation with an end user, with a set of end users, and we take that transcript of the conversation, nobody's manually taking notes, right? We're just having a really good exploratory conversation. What do you care about? What kind of decisions would you make based on this data? What are some key things that you want to make sure that we take into consideration? How are you measuring, right? These kind of really important things that tease out the actual value that's going to come out of that. That transcript gets fed into the dashboard persona who sits there and processes it and turns it into, okay, how would I turn that into requirements for a dashboard? That then goes into our dashboard design engine. The dashboard design engine will, utilizing AI, go, here is a full-fledged visualization. And that process takes minutes. And so I can take a transcript and I can have a prototype dashboard view for our clients, for people, for the end user within minutes. Once that obviously can be iterated through. Once that gets done, that then goes into a couple of additional personas that have a lot of the how do I actually create data, how do I model data that supports that visual. So if you think about it from a medallion standpoint, it could be gold, it could be it could be platinum, right? Kind of depends on how you've got your modeling. And so um, that then allows us to get to where, in a really rapid fashion, from a conversation, I now have a data model and a dashboard, and I'm ready to start executing. And I think that there will be more and more of these examples as far as how we drive things. There was a question in the chat. Let me go to that real quick. So Nicholas said, there's so many decisions living in day-to-day conversations in emails, Teams, Slack, meetings that isn't living even in the data, but it's part of the context. And it feels like the hardest part of AI context, how do we capture not just the data, but the intent? Because I think that's actually a really good answer, a really good question, right? And I think I probably have two responses to that. I think to one degree, there is, if you can capture individual conversations and individual meetings and have that fed into your AI platform. I don't think we'll get to that in the demo today, but like for us, our accelerator platform connects into the Microsoft Knowledge Graph and has access to the meetings and the transcripts and all of that based on the ones that I'm in. And I can pull that into a data product and say, hey, create this conversation as a reusable set of context and knowledge for me that I can then use in different AI chats. I can have agents use it and that kind of thing. And so I think having that kind of access is important. I think the other piece to it is also, if you think about how you're implementing AI at your organization, this is a place where it does make sense to spend some time to go, what is the context that's really important in our organization? And how do I make sure that I've got that embedded, ready, and built into the AI layer? And the good thing is I mean, I'm having flashbacks to, so I worked for a really large commercial real estate firm for a while, and we were doing a global rollout of a data platform. And a huge part of that in real estate is definitions are actually hard. What's a lease? What's a property? What's an amendment? Like these kind of things definitely change country to country. And so we had to do, I'll call it some traditional governance work of going and running workshops and cataloging in spreadsheets and voting on differences. And like it was a whole, like it was like an 8-month global tour process. And I just think about it right now that the ending result of what we needed to do still needed to be done. We still have to get to some agreement as an organization. We can't get away from the hard part of we need to understand our business. But the actual process of doing that facilitated by AI would have been so much faster and so much more accelerated and so much easier to put back in front of people. Hey, this is what you've said to me. How would you break this down? What are these actual results? And so it's a really good question. I do think as organizations, wrestling with how we capture that tacit information is really important. So that's great. Feel free to put other questions in the chat. All right, I think I'm about coming to a close of this thing. So last two, this was kind of 4 and 5. Think bigger AIs for every role. I think we've thrown a couple of different frameworks even internally in our minds, but one of them is kind of author to editor to operator when we think about how AI should work. So author is, I used to write code. I used to create presentations. Maybe I used to write emails, right? I was the author. And call it AI 1.0 is I've moved into the editor chair. I'm not authoring things from scratch anymore because I've got enough business context, enough knowledge about who I am baked into the AI, enough skills and tools inside there that a lot of what used to come out of me from a digital work standpoint now gets created, and I am in the editor seat. And I think we all know sometimes AI knocks it out of the park and gives really good answers really quick. And sometimes I occasionally maybe have gotten frustrated with AI because I wanted it to be faster or better. But that's editor. And then operator though is I'm sitting one level up above. I've got multiple agents that are doing tasks. I have thought about my daily tasks. I have thought about my team's tasks and how they operate, and I've created agents that are acting and bringing results back to me. And it is me in that operator world. And I think that that is where I kind of talked a little bit about enterprise performance. That's where that lens really becomes important. And then I think I've already talked about it, but um, dashboards, and I think Divya will show this a little bit in ours. I really think that we end up with too many dashboards in our organizations for kind of two main reasons. Number one is someone has a transient request. An executive says, "I want to see this," and all our little data people go off and scurry and spend 2 weeks trying to put that together and come back with an answer to that request that 2 weeks later may not be relevant. But even if it is relevant, it's still a one point in time moment. So it's a transient request, but then that ends up on our Power BI server for the rest of time. And somebody then, of course, comes and accesses it 6 months later and goes, "Why doesn't it still work?" I think the other reason that we have so many is I want to see data one way, and then Divya comes along and goes, "Actually, I wish this one chart was a line instead of a bar and had this, additional line on there." And so another dashboard gets created, and then another dashboard, and then another dashboard that's just an iteration off of that core thing that was initially requested. So we end up with a lot of non-transient objects floating around our organization for some very transient needs. And I think that there's a real opportunity if you can do some work to get to some core dashboards that tell the story of your organization and give it an AI that understands the dashboard, understands your data, then a lot of these secondary requests get answered in the moment. And you don't end up with this consistent churn. And that should significantly reduce the kind of the human element that's required just to maintain our BI estate, but also increase the quality of what gets produced. So where are we at? We're good on time. So that's where we're at from kind of those are five pieces as I think about data and AI, as I think about what we're doing to put those things together. Those are the five pieces that I think really make a difference. So if anybody has any questions, I'll let you guys put that in the chat right now, and I'll kind of scan that and maybe come back to that while we start transitioning to a little bit of the, let's call it the demo portion, and showing how this actually looks in real life. So I'll pause if I see questions, but if not, I'm going to go on. So these are the five things we talked about. So AI output consistency, got to have the right data platform. You've got to make sure you understand how you're empowering your teams to move faster, but with quality and governance. You got to really think about how AI is being used and how you're getting beyond individual productivity and what's the actual user interface that you're giving your clients. Those are all important. How has that worked for us? So as an organization, the way I would say that we've kind of taken that and synthesized it down to, let's call it table stakes, is table stakes that you have to have if you're going to get value is you have to have a set of tools or a platform that really gives you at least these four components. You have to have model flexibility. And what I mean by that is you cannot, as an organization, be in a position where you are stuck with only OpenAI, only Anthropic models, only Gemini models for a couple of reasons. One, not all models are best for every purpose. And so you need to be able to use the right model that has the right performance, but also the right cost profile. Not everyone's request needs to run through Opus 4.7. That is not a cost-effective way to run your organization. And also because I don't know about you guys, I mean, this happened to Divya this morning. She was preparing this demo, and I think 2 out of the 3 model providers she was going to use had a short blip. And that's happened. Every model provider, for me at least, that has happened at some point in time over the past month. And so there is some reliability issues there that you've got to be able to account for. So that's number one. Number two, you've got to have agents. So you've got to have agents, or we call them personas, where you can say, "Hey, you need to have the ability to be orchestrated, to go and do some work, to come back to me, to have some understanding about my organization." You've got to have skills. This one I can't like emphasize enough. You think about it, you sit there and you're working through some digital output, and you work for a while within an AI interface, an AI interaction, and you come up with that bit of analysis, that bit of production, that bit of work was great. I do not want to have to next week when I've got to redo this thing or do it again. I don't want to have to re-go through this whole journey. I need to be able to, on the spot, create a skill that is a repeatable set of steps that I can just tell the AI agent next week, hey, go do that thing again. And that's really important. And then the last thing is you've got to have data access. So you've got to make sure that you've got governed, secure, and context engineered access. And so that kind of gets into the data work that has to be done. We can't get away from, and Nicholas, we will answer that question as part of the demo. That's a great cue. It's a great segue. Um, we can't get away from having to do data work. We would love it. We would all love if every bit of data quality issues that we have or data availability issues that AI could just go in and hand wave it all away. And it all just comes and it fills all the gaps in an accurate way and we're in great shape. None of that is true. Not true today anymore. Maybe ask me again in 6 months. Today it's not true. And so we've got to have access to our unstructured data, right? Our files, our definitions, our playbooks to enable multiple teams. We've got to have access to our structured data. And we have to do the context engineering work for the specific value, the specific thing we're trying to do. And we've got to make sure we've got the right security and governance. But if you have this, if you've got these 8 boxes, then you will be ahead of most companies that I talk to right now, and it will put you in a position where you've got the building blocks to go manage your AI journey. And so I think that will be a great segue to Divya, who will kind of walk through what that looks like for us.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. Very nice to see all of you and lovely questions coming through. My name is Divya Sridhar. I'm a senior director at Aleta in the Data and Insight practice, and I've been really getting busy with a lot of these demonstrations. The 4 things that I'm going to talk to you about, these are representative of a number of our capabilities and offerings that we have already delivered to our clients. And so we wanted to use some of our best use cases and bring it to the fore here. So in the next 15 minutes, what I'd like to do is make those 5 truths that David talked about real. And in order to make that tangible, I want to give you the option to select one of these 4 use cases. I'd start with first sales effectiveness. So, which I'd probably dare and say is becoming a board priority across the board, where almost all organizations are calling out that AI needs to improve the overall sales effectiveness in their organizations. So, what we're going to show over here in this demo would be how AI can accelerate the onboarding of new sellers, as well as when your sellers have access to uninterrupted real-time access to data platforms, they have richer insights that can help them empower and grow their accounts even more. So that's the what will encompass in the sales effectiveness. On contract intelligence, almost all organizations have this pain point where massive of information is held in unstructured documents and contract documents, and you almost need a small army to unearth those insights to identify if you have risk exposure, if you have compliance risks. And so what we have done is created agents through our accelerator framework that consistently retrieve those critical insights from these contracts, but also went one step further where these contracts are then parsed into our data platform where we can then do some really high quality contract analytics. One for our operations lifeline, HR and people function. This is the lifeline of every organization. And so one of the pain points that you have repeatedly is our HR teams have to constantly deal with questions around benefits, around policies. And so if we have agents that can essentially respond to those questions and give some leeway to our HR personnel, but also personalize those answers so that it's not just a retrieval, but personalizing it to the question that our employees are asking, that will be a massive productivity gain for your organizations. But then we take it one step further where we also see what if these accelerator can also link into your HRIS system and get some real high quality people analytics. And lastly, we wanted to showcase some of our bespoke use cases. We've been working with a lot of clinical research companies and healthcare on the life sciences and clinical research. And so you might know that they sit on vast amounts of critical data points, like indications on cancer patients, on their treatments, survival rates. And so if the clinical researchers had access to, again, the data platforms that stitches all of this information without having to use SQL or querying language, they use natural language to retrieve all of this information. So we'll just release a poll for you. If you can select which of these four use cases speak to you the most, I'll get going with the demo.
Watching the polls come in. It's neck and neck.
Indeed. I can even try 1 and 4 if there's interest. It looks like there seems to be there's workforce intelligence as well. Gosh, you guys. All right. Are we settling down on
You got 10 seconds. 10 seconds, and then we're done. We're locked in.
I do. That's a fair assumption I will take. Yes, Stephen.
All right, Divya, looks like dealer's choice.
Okay, so I think can I go with the sales effectiveness to start with? And if given time, we'd quickly dip into the workforce intelligence because I think workforce intelligence has some interesting skills bit that I want to talk about. So I'll start with workforce, show you one part of the demo, and then kick into the sales effectiveness. How about that? Okay. While I share my screen. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
I can. So I would imagine others can.
Thank you. Okay, so before we dive in, let me set the context of what you're seeing on the screen. What you have is our AI accelerator as an internal instance for Aleta. We call it Aleta Bot. Now, when we give this framework out, we provide it as an offering. This essentially becomes yours to own. The code is yours, hosted in your organization. You can brand it, you can name it. It becomes completely yours as a proprietary information, as a framework. And so you could call it better names than Aleta Bot. We are in the process of renaming it. I know our SVP of innovation is hell-bent on making it better in terms of marketing, but we called it Aleta Bot when it first incepted. Now, most organizations like yourselves, I'm sure David mentioned that you need to have agreements with several model providers. Today morning was an interesting one where I'm trying to get ready for the demo, and pretty much OpenAI and Gemini gave up on me. And so I had to go back to Claude and say, help me out here. And I could only do this because we have multiple agreements with the model providers. What this accelerator does is it gives you the ability to bring all of these models in one place as an aggregator. So if you see the front end of it, it looks like a chat interface, but what it gives me the ability is to really have all my models in one place. You could have direct agreements with the models, you could have it through your cloud providers. It aggregates it all together. So the capabilities that are there, like the agents, the personas, the data products, the skills, all the foundational context engineering work that David talked about becomes usable across these models. And so you're not held hostage by one model platform or the other. You're able to bring all of it together. And that I would say is one of our biggest differentiators for the AI accelerator. Now, the foundational work. What you have on the left-hand side are all our capabilities, and I'm going to talk one to the other because there were some really interesting questions coming through from Nicholas about how do we share those skills. I want to actually go into it directly. So what we have, one of the foundational aspect is a skill. The skill, I'd like to consider it as almost encoded domain knowledge. So for the people analytics, workforce analytics work, what I have done is I've created a skill that essentially looks something like this. And if I simplify it, I have used a lot of the knowledge that our HR teams have when they get information, when they get questions, when they understand how they understand the benefits and the policies. I've used all of those domain knowledge, encoded it in the form of this skill, which now becomes a reusable entity because it tells the AI how to deal with questions when certain questions regarding policies and benefits come through. So what does it say? It has some critical operating principles. It'll first of all explain to the AI model how do you need to deal with the questions that's coming in. So contextualize before answering, distinguish facts from flags, show calculations, not just results. These are some of the operating principles that have been put in place so that your response is reliable and consistent no matter who is asking, no matter what time are you asking, it will be reliable because you have skills put in place. Domain vocabulary becomes really important. This is where AI differentiates from giving you generic answers to very domain specific answers. Something that can be composable to your organization is the domain vocabulary. You store it once, you keep it updated on a regular basis, but this becomes a shareable entity. I would go further into question classifications. Now, this is again this skill has been created for the HR so that people can essentially ask the right questions and the responses can come from an HR voice perspective. So the questions have been asked as, right, AI, please understand the kind of questions that you're going to get. You might get something regarding benefits, policies, calculations. You could have a sensitive topic. You could have individual record requests. Just understand what those identifier cues are and what primary skills you need to apply. And then goes into some really good response priorities. This is where we essentially understand what to answer, what are the right guardrails put in place, what should not be answered. And so this is what a skill looks like. Really simple document, a markdown file, which can be shared across the board in this fashion. So I can share it with David, I can share it with an entire organization within Aleta, and they can reuse it for their own purposes. I hope that answers the question that Nicholas had or someone else had on the how do we share the skills across the organization. And so now that I have the skill in place, what's the next step? So the skill is essentially the what. It's told the AI what to do, but then what to do on what part of the data set? What's the corpus of data that this particular agent needs to work on? And I have an anecdote to share. David did share this about the Salesforce, but we had something that it happened internally. A few years ago, Later bot was created, and out of gung-ho, we decided, right, this is a brilliant piece of thing. We need to position it into our SharePoint and expect magic to happen. And that's what we did. We wrote a prompt, we linked it to our SharePoint, and we expected everything to come through really seamlessly, cleanly. Nothing happened. Absolute gibberish came out of it. And we spent more time trying to figure out the prompt and improve the prompt. And then the realization dawned is the context window was way too wide. The questions that we were asking was not even getting pinpointed to the right data sets. So what we did was created a capability called a data product, which is what I'm going to show you next. So within the data product, so in my example of the HR system, I essentially have a data product which looks something like this. I can go and edit the data product. It has the ability to store files. It has the ability to go and link into URLs. And it also has the ability to link to specific SharePoint, specific folders. So you're narrowing the context window because you're telling the model, this is the corpus of data that you're supposed to use. Do not go and hallucinate. Do not go beyond the boundaries of what I've provided you as the data set. That means your input is contextualized, your input is guarded and put a boundary around it, which means your output is going to be more reliable and there is no hallucination that's going to happen. And this is the data product along with the skill that makes the backbone for our persona. That's the HR assistant. So I'm going to now show you our persona. And I like personas from calling it as my digital colleague, right? A persona gives you a complete wraparound of the behaviors that you want the models to embed. You had the data, you have the skills, but how do you want the persona to respond to you? It can respond to you in a very verbose manner because you want maybe a lot of details, or it is a persona for an executive community who wants sharp, pinpointed answers. So the dress up of how you want your persona to respond comes into the behaviors that you give to the personas. So in this case, I have a persona called Arya. She is a people and policy advisor. I'm going to show you the makeup of this persona, which is have a really nice description. It has a starting message. And now comes the personality. The personality is it's warm, calm, and precise. Arya speaks in plain English. Its expertise is in Vantara Tech. This is the company, Vantara Tech's HR policy, employee benefits. And there's a whole set of guardrails that's been put in to really model the behavior that you want out of your AI models. And this is what starts to make a difference in terms of reliable outputs. I also have the ability to select a particular data product over here. So this is where I've selected the data product. I would go ahead and select a skill, and this makes the entire persona well-bound. Now, actually, let's have a conversation with this persona. So it would be really as simple as having a chat. So I would start the chat. And so you don't have to see me write a number of questions. I'm going to try and get you the questions in place. So here's my question to the persona. Let me look at. Okay, I want to be able to understand. Give me a second. Tell me about my benefits. And I am a new parent to be. Let's see what it tells me. Now, what it does is it actually just goes into the corpus of the data. It's going to start looking at what's my question, what's the knowledge base that I have, and how can I tailor make that answer specific to my question rather than pinpointing in the direction of a benefits document or a policy documentation. So the trace is on here because I wanted the trace for my own confidence rating. I want to be able to see how it's making those decisions for the answers that it's going to provide. It takes sometimes a hot minute. I did say that, OpenAI was not working for me this morning. So if it doesn't, I have an offline view that I'm going to switch over to and show you what it's going to provide, which might be, in the interest of time, a better thing to do. Let me show you what I've already kind of looked into it. So oh, maybe I asked a different question. So there you go. I said I'm choosing between PPO and SDHP during open enrollment. I have given it a personal situation. I've said I have a partner. We're generally healthy, but we also have a toddler who ends up at the doctor pretty often. Help me think about my plan. Now, this is a very specific tailored question that I have for my situation. And so what I don't intend to get is a policy documentation. But it doesn't. It actually gives me something specific with some math behind it. And it gives me a quick view of, here you go. These are all the options that you could go for your family coverage. It also means that you're able to save some, you're able to reduce your deductibles. Here's some of the positions that you could go for. Do you want me to actually give you an annual cost side by side through a rough number of pediatric visits? It's giving me some really tailored answers because the skills made it happen. It's not giving me generic information. Similarly, I've also said something that there might be a mistake in my last paycheck. My PTO payout looks wrong. Can you check that for me? And this is where the guardrail kicks in. It tells you clearly, I am not going to be able to check this because the skills clearly tell me this is outside my domain. I will need you to go and speak to the HR service portal or this email that you need to. This starts to differentiate between AI models that hallucinate versus AI models that can truly give you productivity gains and reliable answers. So that was a very quick demo on the workforce intelligence side because I wanted to show you the skills. I want to show you the sales effectiveness side of things so that we can see how our sellers can fast track on their onboarding if they're new to the organization, but also how do they truly gain benefit of the data by interacting with real data. And for that, I would go into my organization. So in this, I have a persona. This persona, just for the context, we have a seller, a new onboarding for the new sellers. And this persona helps any new seller get accelerated onboarding into the organization. So it would be as simple as me starting a chat, and I would want to essentially look at, as a new seller, it's giving me options. It's saying, hey, you want to go in and look at the company and product knowledge. There are vertical playbooks. There's a call prep. There's commercial frameworks. But what do you want to do? Do you want to go into a knowledge base, or do you have something else that you want to do? So what I really want to do is I actually have a call with my new prospect. And so I want this agent to help me prepare for it. So I would just click on that and I say, I have my first prospect meeting with this new client. It's a new business. I'm new to Vantara. Please help me prepare. Now, generally, what AI models have been renowned to do is give you some generic information. I'm expecting this agent to really help me prepare by taking in the cues of the questions that I've given. I said I'm new. I've given the name of the company that I want to go and have a conversation with. This is my first prospect meeting. There are all these cues that are hidden. And so it's going to give me something tailored. So what you have to get tailored to Ridgeline. It's telling me, hey, you know what? You need to be able to open the conversation about an integration that this company is going through. There's also a new CFO who has a cost mandate. You need to be able to use that as a selling trigger. You also want to see that there is a compliance aspect. So go and talk about this. It's given me a competition view, all on the basis of the data product that we have and the skills that we have created. It's giving me tailor-based information on this. And let's say that I have enough, I've understood all of this, but now I want to be able to look at some real-time data and get more empowerment on my accounts. So I'm going to go to a different persona this case, and this is my account intelligence one. What it's going to allow me to do is now I'm no longer a new seller. I'm actually an established seller in the organization. And I want to be able to really get into my data. I want to be prepared for my QBR with my customers as the customer success agent. I have a customer called Meridian Life Sciences, and I want to know how's the health of that organization. So I'm going to try and get some questions there. Let me first start by saying, can you give me a full picture of my account? And so what's happening before I press enter here? What's happening here is this particular persona links directly to a data platform, queries real-time data from our data platform, and produces the information, not out of any unstructured documents, but structured relational information. So the data product that we have that feeds and fuels this is a data product called Vantara Account Intelligence. And I want to show you how it's actually produced. So there you go. If you go into Snowflake, you're able to actually link it directly to the semantic layer, the dimensions, the facts, the actual data that is stitched behind the scenes into the accelerator so that you can now have a natural language conversation directly through the accelerator and take real-time data access out. So with that, I'm going to go back to my persona. And start a chat. And so, like I said, I want to understand about Meridian Health. And you'll see the actual works behind it. It's
I
going
think
to have,
probably one more minute, Divya, and we gotta wrap it up.
I am going to switch over to the offline bit in case it takes a while. Okay, it is thinking about it. Like I said, today the models have been a bit slow on me. So let me show you the actual view of the world. Oh, there you go. Have that queued in. This is the beauty. I could bookmark things. If I want to revisit it at a future state, I could do that. So I asked the question, give me the full picture on Meridian. It started a number of things in the back. It started a Cortex analyst. It started a SQL analyst. It queried Snowflake, came back with the results, parsed it into English, provided me with a full view of a commercial trajectory, which would have been relational tables, but I now have it in English. So I, as a seller, would understand this better. I have this graph in front of me. I also get a view of, well, there's better delivery satisfaction. There is information on commercial trajectory. I think I want to know something about usage for this customer. I get a connect understanding. They have, connect dispensement boxes. So I have a view of how the utilization is happening. I also have some market intelligence data because we're using some benchmarked information to come through. So I'll get that as well. And finally, I am a visual person. I want all of this to be packaged in the form of a dashboard that helps me gather all this insight for my future conversation. So that's what I do is I put this all together by just clicking on create dashboard. Within the accelerator itself, it starts to build the dashboard for me. And so going back to David's conversation, you don't need to always go and build dashboards for a transient request. If I had an in-moment requirement, I'm using this dashboard for my purposes, which I can also orchestrate through an orchestration capabilities. I can schedule this to happen every Monday before I start my sales meeting. I have this view real time. And so that is what will package the whole thing from getting into unstructured data, getting information from structured data, using your skills, using your data product, packaging it all together with AI to give you reliable results. I think I'm going to hand it over to you, David.
Thanks, Divya. I know it's always a lot to try and fit in, and there's many things that we didn't show, but I think the point was to make sure you guys got some awareness of when we talk about lost all my pictures. All these pieces that need to be in place. That's kind of a way that can look from personas to dashboard creation to skills to data access. And so if anybody wants to see more, please reach out to us. We can definitely go into a deeper dive there. I think with 3 minutes left, I'm not going to be able to go into the depth around this client story that I'd like to. But what I will say is we're seeing this actually be embedded in full functional areas of an organization. This one is talking about where we dealt with a multi-billion-dollar distributor in the sporting goods arena, and we put some of the tools like what Divya is talking about in the sales team when they were going to make sales calls. We put it in the hands of their actual retailers to do full market analysis. And then I think really interesting is around procurement. I've got to put product in a 500,000 square foot warehouse. What product should I buy? How much should I buy so that way I optimize the turns? And that requires a lot of interesting data points to be added up. You've got to have your forward-looking sales projections. You've got to have your current inventory. You've got to have your past sales history with a given manufacturer, and all that together, is creating something that ends up looking like this for our customers. So anyway, it's really exciting stuff. Like the impact to the business, if you take it to the enterprise level, is significant. So I will bring us to a close. Really appreciate you guys engaging. Really appreciate the feedback and everyone really staying with us through the whole thing. Key takeaways: the tools you bring to the table do matter. They do make a difference. Your enterprise data is your differentiator. Recognizing that not all of it is immediately available and there may be some work to do. Someone made a note about if our HR system is back in the 90s, that may be a challenge to get that data out. But it is important. And it does have a real impact on your employees, on your customers, on the functional areas within your organization. And then I think the last thing is leadership leads change. If you're a leader in your organization, it is a journey to help people understand how to make AI a core tool of how they get better, that it expands what they can do, not a threat. And so it's part of our job as leaders to make sure we're enabling our employees giving them the best opportunity we can to be able to succeed in today's world, to be honest. Um, Quick shout out just to one of our close partners that we work with, Cloud Communications Group, CCG. You can't have enterprise grade data without enterprise grade infrastructure, data centers, connectivity, and security required to move that data at the speed that AI demands. Cloud Communications Group is the team behind the infrastructure decisions that determine whether AI scales or stalls. They help organizations align the data foundation, architecture, security, and cost structure required to move AI from ambition to execution. So reach out to them as well if you have any questions around that. And with that, I will close this out. I am going to put one more link in the chat here for everybody. This is a direct link to this presentation, this webinar that we just did. Would love to continue the conversation. So if you have more questions, if you want to reach out, you should have some contact information and be able to reach out to us directly, but also put some comments on there. I'll monitor it over the next couple of days. If I see anything, I will respond to it. And then lastly, you will be getting an email survey from us. There it is. There's a survey as well. Would love your feedback, guys. We do this because we hope that it's interesting. We hope that it's an opportunity for you to interact a little bit and get something that sparks your next steps on your AI journey. And so anything you can tell us what you love, tell us what you hated, whatever it is, we'll take it. It'll help us get better. And so again, thank you very much and hope everybody has a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you.